All right, we are officially live. Feels good to be back. It's been a minute actually. We missed last week's episode, but we also had the Adam Boys interview, which was a very fun, exciting interview for those of you guys out there. Um, actually, interested in that interview, which was pretty good. You can hear me, Anchor. Everything is good. Hello. Uh-oh. Let's see.
There we
I
go.
lost Anchorman.
No, sorry, just I did.
Anchorman returns.
As soon as we went live, I didn't hear anything. It's like, oh,
that was weird.
how it is.
That was weird. That was weird for a few minutes, or a few seconds actually. All right, so yeah, we're live. Doing a little pre-show, kind of reminiscing a little bit about last week's Adam Boyce interview. And it feels good to be back again, as I always say. Obviously, anytime that I'm not in the hospital and then we're able to do a show is a good day to me. Yeah, man, if you haven't heard the Adam Boys interview, go ahead and check it out. We did that show last week. Some of the team obviously wasn't able to make it because of scheduling issues, but it was a really good show. We talked a lot. We talked about how he used to make games for XBLA, about how he worked at Midway before going to Sony. There were some things that I missed from the first interview. Like we talked about how developers approach Sony and how they're able to make games. It kind of gave you a really good feel of what it was like on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
What it was like on the other side of the competition, I guess you can say. But the one thing I learned about Adam is that he's truly a gamer. I know a lot of people didn't like him. But that's the man's job. You got to respect competition. I mean, I can't be mad at Aaron Greenberg for showing empty plaques of consoles being sold down and constantly promoting those things because that's his job. He's the head of marketing. His job is to market to the Xbox fans and the people out there interested in Xbox. And the same thing was for Adam Boyce. He was out there doing marketing and things like that. And it was just smart to attack Microsoft on the policies that a lot of fans didn't agree with at the time. Was it cool? Obviously not if you're an Xbox fan, but if you're a PlayStation guy, it was very interesting and it worked for them. So kudos to Adam for thinking of that on the fly at the show. And you can hear all about that on the latest Take Special that we did last week with Adam Boyce, which is in our interview section as well as the opening of the channel. What's going on, Zach? What's going on, Analog? Thank you, Analog. I appreciate your support, man, stopping in and always giving us support and things like that. Very appreciative of that. Same for Zach. Very appreciative of you guys. Would greatly appreciate everybody giving us a thumbs up. We really appreciate the support. Last week's one episode we had like 81 thumbs up. Incredible support, incredible turnout. Very grateful for that, man. So if you love Tick Podcast, you love what we do for the Xbox community, and you love our channel, just for what we bring diversity-wise to gamers overall, make sure you give us a thumbs up. Make sure you give us support. We greatly appreciate it, and we really are grateful for all the fan support and the people who are helping us continue to grow in the positive way that we want to grow. Without the drama, without the BS, without the fanboy and console war stuff, but just positive content, positive news. And every once in a while, we get into our little banter back and forth on, Xbox and PlayStation, but we always keep it gaming. And that's what's important. So let's begin the show. We got a lot to talk about. Just going to be me and my boy Anchorman here. If B Money pops in, we'd be greatly happy for that. But he just had a baby. He just had a baby boy. So shout out to B Money 101 and congratulations on a new addition. So he could be busy, but hopefully he pops in. So let's get the show started. Welcome to the Inner Circle Podcast, the premier podcast for Xbox One. I'm your host, KLRXKLL, and with Anchorman V.
Hey, everybody.
And of course, B Money 101, who may be late or may not come out tonight for obvious reasons. We make up the Inner Circle podcast. Tonight, man, we have much to discuss. We want to talk about Square Enix and them dropping IO Interactive, which is pretty big news considering successful in that episodic content and the way they delivered it. We're definitely going to see how that correlates to what Phil Spencer tried to talk about when it came to him talking about how single player games really don't have the longevity or strength or money. I guess you could say the money power that they used to have. I think a lot of people still take what he said out of context because of the games he chose. But in all honesty, you really have to look at the overall install base of sales. It's not to say that wasn't successful, but it's not adding up. We'll definitely talk about Scorpio's UI, which was recently teased, and some stuff happening over at Ubisoft. And I can't wait for Anchor to talk about these things. And we'll definitely discuss what Ubisoft has been doing as of late and how they've made a dramatic change in the industry. So listen, Square drops IO Interactive. I don't know why. I have no clue why. I don't know why they're trying to sell them off. I hit Phil Spencer up immediately, and I said, Phil, if you want a studio that's going to make you episodic games for Game Pass, this is the studio to get. You know, I could imagine them grabbing something like Perfect Dark, and I would hate to have Perfect Dark like that. But when I look at Hitman, which was kind of a stealth action game, if you want to make Perfect Dark a stealth action game, you could do that. You make that a AA title, you make it episodic, you put one episode out and release it free on Game Pass, or for $5 or $10 as an episodic episode in the Perfect Dark series, which honestly, no, I really wouldn't want it to be Perfect Dark. I really want Perfect Dark to be a full-fledged game, but you could have something like that, and that would be a studio that makes games and just creates games dedicated to Game Pass, which I think would be really, really cool. It doesn't have to be dedicated to Game Pass, but considering that's something that he talked about, that would be actually pretty cool. But I don't understand why Square is dropping the studio, moving on from it. Anchorman and I spoke about this in the party with Drunken Master D. Shout out to Drunken Master D, by the way. And I had my own theories on what I think Square is doing, and I'll get into that. But before we begin, Anchor, what is your thoughts on this, man?
I mean, what else do you guys want? Like, I mean, everybody was all up in arms about what Phil Spencer said. I mean, yeah. And like like I said before, back on the last podcast when we were talking about this, if Phil had said this today, or had said this 4 months ago before Horizon Zero Dawn and Legend of Zelda came out, no one would have batted an eye, because this is pretty much the same kind of deal. You got all these heavy single player games that are trying to diversify, and they're trying to find a market, but they just aren't succeeding for whatever reason. Sometimes it's release date. Sometimes there's some development problems. And yeah, each individual one has a few issues, but we're consistently seeing single player games. If they're not huge, like absolute successes, they're going to the wayside. And it's like you have a couple like publishers who have enough money to burn where it's kind of like, yeah, we don't really care. It's kind of like all goodwill. We don't really care to see if it fails or not. I mean, like, here's an example. I mean, Bethesda, they dropped Dishonored 2, did great review scores, did great among everybody who played it, but didn't sell that great. And then you got another situation with Hitman, which is actually one of the very few episodic games I actually kind of enjoyed. Didn't feel really piecemeal to me. And it was a really good one, got a lot of good scores, did really well amongst fans, even sold well, and still gets put to the wayside. And you got, now they're saying Mass Effect's getting put on ice, like they're not gonna, like, hey, we're putting it back on the back burner, we're not really working on it anymore, but maybe it might come back, but probably not anytime soon. I mean, there's lots of games like this nowadays that are going through these problems. I mean, look at Deus Ex. Deus Ex is another example. It came out last year, great review scores, everybody loved when they played it. Now it's like, we don't know about the future of that game. It's harder for single-player games to come back from that. If they're not huge initial successes, it's really hard for them to come back. Like, multiplayer games at least have the opportunity to make that comeback. You got a situation like Rainbow Six Siege is a great example of this, where it came out, didn't sell that great, The player base really kind of dwindled, and over time, they kept releasing content and kept supporting it, listening to the community, going on and on and on. And now Rainbow Six Siege is a force to be reckoned with on the most played list. It is doing really damn well. And it's just really, it's frustrating to see people kind of like play, like, oh, Phil Spencer's like doesn't know what he's talking about. But then you keep seeing this constant trend of it's not working out. It's not working out. It's not working out. It's not saying it's not happening in multiplayer games, but it seems to be happening to single player games a lot more with a lot more dire consequences.
It's funny because when you look at what Square has been doing, and this is why I think Square is probably dropping IO. I kind of feel like Square is, let me not say Square because it's not Square, Square Enix. I want it to be Square. I miss Square. I really do. But when you look at Square Enix reminds me of Platinum a little bit. It's almost like they have their hands in too much. This is how I feel. And every game they put out is like a major event. You look at some of the big titles that they have, AAA wise, you're talking about Deus Ex, you're talking about the Final Fantasy series, Tomb Raider, from their American titles to some of the Japanese titles, from Dragon Quest. You can go on and on what they've been producing. Nier Automata. It is a plethora of titles that they have been producing lately. And I can tell you right now, we think about what they said with Tomb Raider and how they wanted Tomb Raider to sell 10 million copies. 10 million in order for that to be accessed. That wasn't something that they just pulled out of thin air. And I really, truly believe financially they're not recouping. This is the problem. And I think this is the problem that a lot of people don't understand and why Phil said what he said. Now, I'm not trying to go Xbox Defense Force here. I just want people to understand what he's trying to say. You look at Halo 5. Halo 5 didn't sell nowhere near what the original Halo series did. But you know what it did do? It sold a crap ton of DLC and a crap ton of microtransactions. And as much as we hate those things, as much as we feel like we don't want them, it's an option and it's a choice. And people actually went out and purchased these things. They bought these microtransactions so much that they had enough money to fund the entire reward for the Halo tournament. That's how much money they made off of microtransactions, which I think the reward was like $2 million. And that's just a little taste of probably what they made off the game then. I don't even know what they made off the game right now. So you look at a game like that, and even though it didn't knock it out the park as far as Halo was concerned, I believe it's probably around 6 or 7 million, maybe 6 million at this point. Financially, it did what it was supposed to do. Now, when you look at single player games, it is not to say that single player games aren't great, but when you look at single player exclusives, you have to question who is buying what. A game like Uncharted sold 9 million copies. And keep in mind that game also was given away free last holiday and bundled with every PlayStation 4 Slim. Prior to that, it sold about around the same amount as Halo, around 5 million copies. And that game has a multiplayer to it. It gives the game longevity. And I'm pretty sure there are microtransactions in the game. You have DLC coming out for the game. They know what they're doing and how to extend their game to make more money on that game. And people understand how important that game is. But you look at titles like Zelda, which did amazingly well for the Switch, but people tend to forget it also sold on the Wii U. And no one really bought it for the Wii U. Some did, but not many. So that Nintendo install base was mainly for Switch. And the people who bought Zelda was mainly for Switch. And though it's so well, there's still about 18 million install base on the Wii U that people just completely ignored that game. And no one purchased it. You would expect Zelda to sell like 8 million copies or 6 million copies. Horizon Zero Dawn did excellent as well. But for an install base of 60 million people, you would expect a game like that to do about 8 or 9 million, which is kind of like what Halo used to do back in the day, and God of War and all those other games. Games just don't sell the way they used to back in the day on 360 and PS3. They just aren't. But these multiplayer titles like Overwatch, Call of Duties, Battlefields, Destiny, as much as we don't want these games to be successful because they're multiplayer games and they're dude bro, as some would say, these are the games that come out year in, year out and make millions and millions of dollars for these companies. And that's why they continue to push it. They really do. Now, it's not to say that I think Microsoft is not going to do first player games, but I understand why they want to put something like when they were creating Scalebound, a multiplayer aspect to the game, 4-player co-op, which something I completely disagree with. I think that ruined the game in itself, or it helped ruin the game in itself, because the game, in my opinion, was already a bit choppy. So I felt that adding that 4-player component, as I won't say realistic, but as good as the graphics were for that game, it just didn't seem like it could handle 4 dragon AIs and 4 controlled characters on screen at the same time. I just completely thought it was too much. And that could have been one reason, besides we know some of the other reasons. But in the end, I truly believe that Square's completely stretched themselves too thin, and they're not recouping on the sales of all the games they're producing. Deus Ex was an amazing game. I love Deus Ex. Deus Ex 1 and 2 were great. I prefer 1 more over 2, but they both were solid, really good games. And Anchor's telling me that they're hanging it up, as well as Mass Effect from BioWare. Is this is the news?
Yeah, unfortunately, these big single player games, like, and this is the part that really gets to me. It has nothing to do with what the quality of the game is. It has nothing to do with it. Now, I think part of it might have something to do with like when they're releasing them. That might be a big one. But I mean, you see a lot of really good games that are getting just kind of forgotten about, and it raises doubts. It definitely raises doubts, and I'm actually really glad he brought up the Halo 5 thing. Michael Pachter was out this week on his new show. He said he spoke to 343, and he was saying that Halo 5 has actually, in terms of copies sold, is on par, if not greater than the rest of the Halo franchise.
What? Really?
Yeah, like it may not be like 15 million like Halo 3, but it's probably at least 8, maybe even 10.
No way. How is Microsoft not shouting?
Keep in mind, they said after 3 months it was at 5.
I get that, but we're talking about Microsoft. Microsoft is kind of like the grandmother that's always in the window that has something to say all the time. You know what I'm saying? Like she's just hanging out that window waiting for somebody to do something to set her off to say something. And something like that, not to have Microsoft shout that from the rooftops that Halo is as successful as any other Halo, that's probably got to have them having a stroke. And right now, Aaron Greenberg is having a stroke right now, keeping that to himself. That's just crazy to me. But that's impressive if it's sold that much.
Yeah, and like, see, having met Michael Pachter, he's a good guy, and like,
yeah, Michael's cool.
He has said some questionable stuff, but in this case, he said he verified it with 343. So that's interesting.
It's very interesting because a lot of people think Halo wasn't successful, and if I'm Microsoft, I'm letting people know how successful Halo is.
But they don't. That's the thing. They don't talk about sales, and good or bad. It seems lately they just do not talk about it.
That's interesting. B Money is in the building. Congratulations, Papa Bear. What's going on, man?
Hey, man. What's going on, fellas?
Hey, is this B Money 103 or 104 now?
I was trying to put my son down. He's still up, man. So I had to get my wife to get him. So, but glad to be back. Talking about video games. Let's do it.
Absolutely. So, we're talking about Square, and you heard about Square dropping IO Interactive. I thought that it'd be cool if, since Phil talked about Game Pass and using games like some of the Telltale titles to kind of put out on Game Pass free, to sell Game Pass. Like if you have Game Pass for $10 a month, you get some free brand new titles instead of just playing old games. And IO Interactive seemed to do really well with Hitman as a episodic game. And that's a major franchise, Hitman. So it would be cool if Microsoft was interested, being that Square is trying to sell them. But the bigger issue isn't so much that Square's trying to sell them, it's why they're trying to sell them, and why they're putting games like Deus Ex on the shelf and Hitman and these things like that, when these games have been probably critically successful, but financially maybe not up to what they want.
I mean, you got to look at that too, though. We got to look at the history of Square. Like when they acquire like IO and Eidos and all of them, like they always try to give them like all this crazy ass shade. You know what I mean? like when they rebooted Tomb Raider and it sold like really well, they're just like, nah, 5 million, not good enough. Like we need to sell more. And it's like, you ask for any other game to sell 5 million, like they'd be happy to sell 5 million. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then like they put Deus Ex out, like that crazy pre-order bonus junk that they had going on. People were just like, "What are y'all doing?" You know what I mean? And then they put it out in the fall. It gets overshadowed by everything. So then we look at Hitman. Hitman is a story franchise, been around since as long as I can remember. Original PlayStation, I remember. It was on PC before that. You know what I mean? So it's been around for a long time. Out of nowhere, it becomes an episodic game. Why? You know what I mean? Like, yeah, they probably had some success with it, but I was looking at the sales numbers for it earlier. The game previous Hitman Absolution, which is like totally different from any other Hitman game, so better than what this current Hitman game did. So it's like, what are y'all doing? So like in my mind, it's almost like they were just trying to push all these Western oriented games away. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because like they talk crap about the sales of Tomb Raider, and then Rise of the Tomb Raider didn't do as well because of the mix up that they had with, releasing it and then releasing it again the following year.
Right.
Deus Ex got like no love after it came out. You know what I mean? Hardly anybody was talking about it. Great game. Game was sold for like $20, like literally like 4 weeks after it came out.
It was.
It was like in bargain bins.
Yep,
Hitman, like the rollout was great. You know what I mean? They have these elusive targets. I actually believe they just released another elusive target like this week or last week. Like people are enjoying the game, but it's episodic, so that completely turned a lot of people off who have been like with the franchise for many years. You know what I mean? So I think they were trying to step away from it, and this is like their easy way to do it.
I mean, if they're going to sell IO Interactive with the franchises, then yeah, you hop on that. You absolutely hop on that. You have to. But if they're just going to sell the studio, see that, and that's what I was saying to Anchor. I'm like, if you're going to sell IO, are you selling Hitman with IO? Like, what are you selling with them? But if you're just selling the studio, then that's a completely different story. I mean, because
if you're just selling the studio, then couldn't they just walk away at that point? You know what I mean? Just form their own studio or whatever the case is. Because like if you're selling the studio, you have to then take on the ownership of 100+ people or whatever,
right?
And try to put them on.
Good question about who
franchises they've never worked on. Yeah, that's important too. Like what IP does IO actually own,
right?
Or if they own any, you know what I mean?
Or they just raw, like just going out there with nothing.
You would have to pick the studio up based on its talent, and how much would the studio be worth? I mean, I look at Microsoft and I'm say to myself, as a company that really needs first party studios, I don't know if Interactive is a studio you would invest hundreds and millions in, being that you don't really know what their track record is. But at the same time, if anybody needs to invest in a studio, it's Microsoft, and that's without question. It's a very interesting concept. It leads us into what Phil talked about again when it comes to Not so much Microsoft not doing first party. I think people's biggest issue is that he used the major titles of Zelda and Horizon Zero Dawn and not something else. But I think the point had impact, and him using those games. Like if he says something else, no one would bother to listen. But using those games have impact because now you get people attention, especially people who dislike Microsoft. And again, I completely understood what he was saying. When you look at games like a Halo or an Overwatch or Call of Duty or a Battlefield, and you think about the long-term effects, or a Destiny or any MMO for that matter, any free-to-play title for that matter that's an MMO. Look at Happy Dungeon. I guarantee you Happy Dungeon makes bread. Like literally, you have guys out there playing this kind of like cartoon cardboard cutout type game. And when you log in, there's hundreds and hundreds of people playing this game with it's tons of microtransactions just for the costumes. And as much as we hate it, we don't have to buy it. Yet there are people out there that constantly do. I can't play Madden. Like I try to play Mutt. I can't play it because I refuse to pay for cards. First of all, I refuse to pay for a card that's going to expire on me. That's number one. I won't even keep the damn card. The card actually expires over time, which is actually frustrating in itself. But spending $10 on a pack of virtual cards to improve my roster is insane. It's insane.
Yeah,
I do.
But so many people do it that
That's
will
what I'm
continue
saying.
to do it. You know what I mean? Like,
But dude, what if
and
they told you
I was actually
that's free?
What'd you say?
Like, okay, so that's actually one of the things about the Michael Pachter thing I wanted to bring up was he brought up Halo 5 in that and brought up the sales aspect simply because he was talking about the evolution of the model, how the model has changed where it used to be when a game came out, it was $60 or something close to that, and that was it. That was the only sale. Then they moved to the DLC model of expansions where, like Call of Duty is an example, you have, like, say, you have a player base of 20 million people who play the game regularly. When the first DLC comes out, you might sell 5 million copies of that first DLC, but then you lose that player base that doesn't buy it because they can't stay on the cutting edge. You might lose half of them. Then the second DLC comes out, then only portion of the people who bought the first DLC are going to buy it, and you slowly are alienating more and more people, so less and less people are playing over a longer period of time. But what they've realized, and Halo 5 is probably the first real big success story of this, is if you keep the maps free, you keep the player base strong. And the trade-off, though, is you got to have microtransactions. You keep it kind of, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't affect the gameplay per se, but it's all cosmetic stuff or maybe like these weird packs or like cards stuff. But it does, everybody gets the same content and you still get a taste of it, but people can spend more money. Like, I mean, there are people out here who spend $60 on Overwatch with each event just to get loot boxes, which affect gameplay.
That model actually came from like mobile, and then once like EA took a hold of it and started doing it with MUT, and 2K started doing it with like their pack openings, you know what I mean? That's where that model came from.
Yeah,
it's a large success because like the sports games that they sell well, they might do 6-7 million a year, but you know when people spend their $60 and then you get somebody who spends another $500 throughout the year open up packs, like why would you not do that? So more and more games have adopted this model, and this is just a trend that you'll continue to see. Like even in some of the single player games, you see some of the same stuff going on. You know what I mean? Where you can just spend money on cosmetic stuff, and it just kind of keeps the game going. So
yeah,
super surprised about this because I think this is something that'll continue, and this is kind of where, you know, I took, you know, what Phil was saying and kind of applied it to this. It wasn't that they weren't going to have single player games anymore, but that just that the model had to change for them to be profitable.
Right.
Yeah.
And I exactly 100% agree. I completely get it. I know a lot of people don't get it and they look at it as a bash because that's what they want it to be. But I completely understand. They have a model that we don't see. People think that Microsoft is doing bad with Xbox One. Literally, they just came out. Amy Hood literally just came out and said that their gaming division just made them like $1 billion or like 100. I don't know how much was it. Did anybody remember the number?
No, off the top of my head.
No,
It's in the billions. at this point. The billions, not millions, the billions. Xbox Live, their software, their hardware, and their subscription based model. The subscription based model has made their game division $1 billion. This is insane for a console that's supposedly stagnant, that's nowhere near close to PlayStation, that's now probably being outsold by the Nintendo Switch. This year they've been making their game divisions making billions. So they're doing something right, and that company is happy, and they look like they're ready to invest more into the gaming side of things. Now, it's very scary to think that the subscription-based model could be something that we'll see more of. People are really looking at the Netflix model of gaming as a viable option for people to play games, and that maybe you don't get a game immediately out the gate, just like you don't see a movie immediately out the gate, and then you turn around and you buy that sub somewhere down the line. You play those games later on, whether it's 6 months or a year later. But for $10, you get Sunset Overdrive and Gears of War and Halo 5 and Forza Horizon, and that's a lot of top titles. You know, especially if you come in 4 years in for $10, that's insane. That is an insane library of titles to pick up. So it's not something that I would do personally because I don't like the wait, but I can see how that's a viable option. If you tell that to any casual parent, they're going to bite. I would bite. You told me that I bought this console for my son for $10 a month, $120 for the year, which is the price of 2 games. He'll get 100 games. I'm buying that. I will kick out the 120 right then and there and just be done with it and walk away. So he'll be done for the rest of the year, you know. And I think that's really important. So, not saying it's something
How do you think Microsoft plays that game though, when they've finally released the Game Pass to the masses? Like, how soon do you update it? Because they said they're going to rotate it every month or whatever. There'll be different games in there.
Well, based on what I read, and based on what I've seen in preview, first of all, they have a ton of 360 games. There's a ton of 360 games in there. That's number one. From like the rare replay titles to just a bunch of old school stuff. So you don't only just get Xbox One games only. You do get a good portion of 360 titles as well. So that helps them balance out not putting all their major titles on there immediately. There's some older games on there, sports titles, and that works. And I think what you do is, as a model, they said that they don't want to rotate the games out that people are truly playing. So I think what they'll do is they'll look at the numbers. They'll say a good portion of people are playing these games. This is what's popular. This is what's not popular. What's not popular, we're going to rotate out and we're going to put in a new set of games. And maybe they take 20% of the most unpopular titles, or maybe more, depending on what's unpopular, remove them and put in a new set of titles. And as the older games that everyone was playing starts to die down, then you rotate those out and you put in a new set of titles. But, your rotation has to be really good. Like, it can't be it can't be where you just throwing in a bunch of indie games or you're just throwing a bunch of old ass games for the sake of it. You have to have 1 or 2, maybe 3 hits a month over the last few years that you had. And it could be anything. Obviously, it's not going to be EA titles, but you could do something like an Assassin's Creed Black Flag, throw it in there, rotate that out, and then put something in like a Mass Effect down the road, the new Mass Effect Andromeda. Not now, but just saying down the road. And that could be something to look at, or Deus Ex, or a Final Fantasy, or Tomb Raider, somewhere down the road. And as those games get played and they get worn down and no one's playing them anymore, you rotate them out and then you put something new in. And I think that could work. That would be a model I think people would truly enjoy, because every month, you just like games with gold, you're looking to see what new title is coming and will it be good.
You know what I think would be a good idea for them, at least for a Netflix model? I think if we're just using 100 games as a sample size here, because it's going to be at least 100, I think you would do it as you got at least 10 games that are just constant games that are always going to be there. Like I think like Halo 5 or something like that. Like, just like a couple core games that are always going to be there on the service. Like some core Microsoft exclusive stuff. And then you have like maybe like 15 games that are there for like they're guaranteed for the year, gonna be there. And then after that, it just kind of ends up like, okay, you got 25, like 25% of them are gonna be there for like they're gonna be here for 6 months. They're gonna be in the cycle for 6 months, and then you have a couple that are in there for like a 3-month period. Where like you could set up themes or something like that, or you could work with publishers to get hype for the next one. Like let's say Assassin's Creed is coming out, you could do something like Ubisoft says, "Hey, we're putting out Assassin's Creed Syndicate and Black Flag and Unity out on Games Pass, like for the 6 months leading up to release of the new Assassin's Creed." But you could hype that way.
I mean, you could, that would work, but I mean, you have to, the big thing that's enticing about it is the rotation of games every month to give off the impression that you're getting new titles. So doing 3-6 months at a time, depending on what the games are, I don't know if that appeals as much. Most people could beat a game in a week, at least most of these titles, unless it's like a major 50-hour RPG like a Witcher or Final Fantasy or something like that. Most games are like 10 to 15 hours, 25 hours at the most. So you can knock most of these games out within 2 weeks. You don't really need 6 or 3 months to play them.
No, the idea is though is you can come in at any point.
You can,
because doing like a month is way too short. Like imagine if Netflix only gave like, hey, we got these 10 new movies that just came out, but you only got a month to watch them all in.
Yeah, but that's different. You're talking about a movie. I think that, again, this is why I based it on what's being played, because they can see this. Remember, there were 10 billion zombies that was killed last month, and there's like 50 million bullets shot from Call of Duty. Like, they know these statistics. They have something that's letting them know these statistics, so they can see what's being played and what's not being played. And what's not being played, you get that out of there because it's wasting time and space when you could put something better in there to entice more people to come in and play. Now, as people continue to play the Assassin's Creed games as an example, then what you then do is, if those games are really popular, or if one of them isn't, you rotate the one that isn't out, but you keep the popular ones in. It has to be based on popularity and what people are playing, so you know what to keep. Because as soon as you take the game that someone's really into, if they come in late and they're on the verge of beating it and you rotate it out, they'll be pissed and you're going to hear it from the fans. But if you leave that game in there and rotate the stuff that people really aren't playing, the percentages have to be at least less than 10%. Then yeah, people might be upset, but the percentage is small compared to something that's being played by 90% of your subscribers. So it's just really important that the perspective is based on what's popular, what's being played, how long it's being played, and compared to just working out some sort of deal to entice gamers. And then if Phil figures out a way to get games like Telltale's Game of Thrones, or The Wolf Among Us, or The Walking Dead, or some other episodic games like Hitman on there at release, that makes it even more enticing for people to buy at $10 a month. So, it's something that if Microsoft is going to do it, they got to do it right the first time. You can't mess it up, because there will be no second chances. With this model, it's very important that they get it right the first time, and hopefully they do. I guess we'll see more at E3, so I'm excited about that. But do you guys think Phil was right?
Yeah, I mean, I think he was right in a sense of that, single player games aren't lucrative. You know what I mean? Standard single player games anyway. So
right,
the model has to change. The business has to change. If we want these companies to continue making these $50 million, $68 million games, they have to kind of recoup some of that stuff back. And I'm cool with that. Just, a lot of people are afraid that, all single player games are going away, and
right,
we'll only have this multiplayer future and every game will be like Overwatch. And that's not going to happen. You just have to be okay with the model. And I think like for us, we're older. You know what I mean? At least me and Wood, like Anchor's a little younger, but you know, he's still in our same generation.
Right.
But for everybody under us, you know, they're kind of used to this model. You know what I mean? Paying for, you know, these loot boxes and stuff coming from mobile, coming from smaller games. That so they'll be okay. They'll be the ones supporting, you know, this new model, and we can still be the old heads and not support buying packs and opening up loot boxes and whatnot, and still enjoy the game too. You know what I mean?
It's funny. Anchor, you think he was right?
I mean, I think he was right ultimately. Just everybody flipped out because it was Phil Spencer saying something about it, games everybody loves.
Yeah,
and I mean,
pretty much.
I look at it, the model. I figured out like, hey, I'm not stupid. I'm not buying these packs. Like I think when EA was doing it, where it was like, yeah, buy the season pass, buy all the expansions, and do the loot boxes and do the microtransactions, that was too much. But if it's just the microtransactions and it's all just cosmetic stuff, hey man, I'm down. Like I'm not going to spend any money on it, but hey, I'm getting free map packs.
Right. Very interesting, guys. Very interesting. I look forward to seeing what Microsoft does coming up at E3. I'm definitely excited about it. I'm waiting for my email to get fixed. It seems the team got their Bethesda invites. So I need to get my Bethesda invite so I can show it off on Twitter and let the fans know your boy would be back at Bethesda. I heard they're going to have a
reply. I'm not even going.
I heard they're going to have a their after parties at an amusement park.
Oh, that's the theme. That's the theme.
Dude, it would be so sick though if they had a theme as an amusement park for all these titles, like Quake is like on a roller coaster or something like that, or like some VR type, you know, roller coaster area. And then you have like some type of food area for Elder Scrolls again. I think that'd be pretty cool, man. I would definitely Periscope. I'm going to be doing a lot of Periscoping on Twitter now that Twitter has Periscope. I got a chance to, well, they have something like Periscope. I got a chance to use it when I went to the Pro Bowl at the out here in Orlando, because they have the Pro Bowl for the next 3 years at Orlando at their new something stadium. I don't know what the name of the stadium is. So I'm definitely going to be Periscoping a lot, whether it's the Microsoft conference, Bethesda, Ubisoft, Sony, whatever we get into, as well as E3. I'm definitely going to be doing that, as well as recording some stuff. I'm going to work on some videos too that I didn't get a chance to show guys from E3 of last year that I have. So I'm going to put those together and let guys see what happened last year at E3 and how I met Inafune, and I got a chance to talk for a long time with oh my God, CEO of Rare,
Craig Duncan.
Thank you, Craig Duncan. I got a chance to talk with Craig Duncan. I know Craig's name. It wasn't coming to me. I got a chance to talk with Craig. Don't hate. I'm not buying no isolation. I wish you guys. I got the people on Twitter tweeting me where I could find Alien Isolation at discount. Everybody is tweeting me because they believe the console is going to be $399. They're like, "Hey, Cal, what's the name's on sale for $14.99? Pick it up now." I'm like, you know what? Oh man, y'all better hope this console is not $500. Oh man. God, I'll be eating some crow. Funny stuff though. But
hey, we keep up with
man,
play Outlast too.
Yeah, I'm not playing that. I'm definitely not playing Outlast. Definitely not playing that. Alien Isolation, I'll try to handle, but Outlast, I'm not doing it.
I figured you like Alien Isolation, honestly. It's Alien, eh?
I'm an Alien fanboy. I love the movies. Don't get me wrong. I can't wait for this what is it, Alien Covenant to come out, but I can't play these. These games are creepy. It's just too much to deal with, bro. It's a lot. It's quiet. This is gonna suck. This is the one time I wish Xbox had YouTube so I could stream it to our subs. I might have to pick it up on PS4. Ugh, Jesus Christ. That's even worse. Somebody told me that, hey, pick it up on PS4. You'll be the last on the PlayStation, playing on PlayStation on a game you lost a bet to.
I want to see that Xbox.
Oh, God. This is crazy. Okay, so let's move forward. Recently, we got a quick look at Scorpio's UI. If you guys haven't seen it, it's similar to the Xbox, but it's a lot more colorful. There's tiles on the side of the screen. It's very similar to the piece.
Oh, is that real?
I don't know. I heard that was real. I heard somebody from Microsoft released it. Yeah, I mean, I thought it would just be the same UI. Maybe it is a concept piece.
I think
I would.
I don't think.
I thought they did say the Scorpio was going to have different UI though.
I don't know what they said.
I'm pretty sure they confirmed that like either earlier this year or like late last year that the Scorpio would have a different UI than the Xbox One.
Yeah, I mean, I look at it from the perspective of Scorpio is supposed to be the same console as the Xbox, similar to the Pro. The Pro UI isn't different from the original PlayStation 4, is it? Right?
No, it's not different.
That's what I'm saying. So it gives the impression that the Pro is just another PS4, just with more power. It truly is really making Scorpio seem like it's a brand new generation if they add a new UI. You know, maybe you have some things that kind of separate it from the Xbox One based on what it can do. Like if it had Movie Party, which I'm still
oh my god, this
you ain't gonna let it go yet.
I'm not Movie Party, but you don't believe in having Fusion Frenzy.
First of all, we got to argue about. Let's not talk about Fusion Frenzy. Me and Anchorman got into this big argument about Fusion Frenzy. You have to drop this Fusion Frenzy. It is not.
When they go out there and it's Fusion Frenzy on screen, I want to see you rush the stage and say Anchorman was right.
I will never do that.
Also, I need you to be wearing an Isolation T-shirt whenever they announce $399.
You know what? Listen, he sit up here. We got into an argument over whether or not the new studio, what is it called? Gobo?
Yeah, Studio Gobo.
Studio Gobo is making a new game, right? We sat up there in a party and we argued about whether or not the new game would be a platformer because they said they're bringing back a title that is beloved.
Skylanders, but Xbox. Like
what I'm saying, hold up. First of all, they said they're bringing back a game.
At least that's what I would think.
That's what I'm saying. Look, they said they're bringing back a game that is beloved by fans, by Xbox fans, right?
A beloved third-person game.
A beloved third-person game, right? I'm sitting up here thinking about every franchise I could think of, but when you look at that studio and what they've built, they've only ever worked on platformer-type titles except for F1 Racing. They had the Disney Infinity titles, which is basically platform, kind of like platform titles, and then you had the F1 Racing. Why the hell would they dabble in something else other than a platformer, right? We all know Rare has a plethora of games just sitting there. I can't think of any other thing.
Banjo back.
I can't think of any other games.
Banjo back. Rare has to make that.
And that's the argument. Look, this is the argument. He felt that if they bring Banjo back or they bring a game like Conquer back, it has to be done by Rare because it's Rare. It's the studio. It just makes sense to do.
It's like saying, the Ratchet and Clank remake is not going to be done by Insomniac. Like that's the kind of thing. It's like, or Jack and Daxter's coming back, but Naughty Dog ain't touching it.
But here's the problem, right? He keep talking about Fusion Frenzy. I almost lost it. I'm like, why the hell you keep talking about Fusion Frenzy? Like, as much as I love Fusion Frenzy, and I really did love Fusion Frenzy.
Yeah, don't lie to them. You told me you didn't like Fusion Frenzy. You said you hated it.
No, I did not. You're lying right now. First of all, never said that. I actually want a new Fusion Frenzy if Fusion Frenzy is $19.99. It's a party game. Let Microsoft show up to E3 with a new studio. You feel me, B? B's already laughing because he already knows. Let Microsoft show up to E3 with a new studio and present Fusion Frenzy. People will go ham. Man. They will never hear the end of it, dog. You will never hear the end of it. I don't know why you keep trying to bring up Fusion Frenzy. Fusion Frenzy is just not going to cut it, bro. it's got to be another title. It can be Perfect Dark. It can be what's the Jet Force Gemini. It could be any other game.
Jet Force Gemini, beloved. Really?
But I'm not saying on 64 it was. Maybe not Xbox. I mean, the only other games I could think of, I can't think of any other games Xbox wise. Cameo?
No.
I mean, what could you think of?
I wouldn't trust Studio Gobo with anything that would require a ton of effort. That's why I'm thinking Fusion Frenzy.
Why do you keep talking about Fusion Frenzy? It's not going to be Fusion Frenzy, bro.
Microsoft sees this. I can't believe nobody sees this.
God, you don't go out and make a contract with a new studio for Fusion Frenzy. You don't. I'd rather them do exactly what they did with Phantom Dust for $15. I'd rather them do that and just remaster Fusion Frenzy than take the time and the money and the effort to go make a contract with a new studio just to freaking come out with Fusion Frenzy, bro. Microsoft would get killed.
I wouldn't announce a partnership just for Fusion Frenzy.
Just for Fusion Frenzy, son. That don't even make sense.
Starting with Fusion Frenzy.
They're not going to start with Fusion Frenzy.
We're going to trust you with little, and then we'll give you a lot later once you prove yourselves.
Most people think it's... I've seen a rumor that some people think it's Fable.
Please, no.
Because a lot of...
No.
There's a good portion of people... There's a good portion of Fable people who...
People say I'm crazy.
Now work for Studio Gobo. But...
yeah, I agree with you. That's crazy.
I'm just telling you that the rumor is that there's a lot of Fable guys that now work at Studio Gobo, and that it could be. And think about it: it's a third-person game. It's beloved by fans. I'm just saying. Now, would that be ideal? Probably not. Studio Gobo, I don't know. I mean, Disney Infinity, they did work with lightsabers. I don't know, man. I'm just throwing it out there. I'm just saying, if it's not any rare titles, what else could it be? What other third-person game could it be?
Brute Force.
Stop. That game was trash. I don't know why people bring that game up all the time. That game was so bad, I returned it the same day.
Here to make a good game.
Oh, my God. Anyway, moving on. Back to what we were talking about. We just completely got sidetracked with that Fusion Frenzy crap. Look, the Scorpio UI. The Scorpio UI is a new UI. Microsoft is going to be looked at. The Scorpio is going to be looked at as a brand new console. That's what it's going to be looked at. That Microsoft gave up on Xbox One, and they're starting a new generation with this new console that has a completely different UI. And I don't know if that's ideal. I would hope that it would be the same UI. Maybe it has a few extra tricks up its sleeve, but for the most part, I don't think you can really change the look of Scorpio because it really would then segregate, not gaming wise, but at least what the console looks like and what the console feels like. If it doesn't feel like Xbox One, does that have an impact on what people see Scorpio as? Not a mid-gen upgrade, but a next generation console.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody? Any thoughts on that?
Oh no, my bad, man. I was trying to look up some images to see how much different the UI was.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. I gotta see it face to face. I just don't, because I thought that was the one thing we were looking at earlier.
Yeah. I was trying to find something that showed like a clear image of it, but haven't found it yet. But yeah, I think if they do have a different UI, then it definitely shows that, even though this is supposed to be in the Xbox One family, that they deem it as a new generation for them. And even though it'll be backwards compatible, you know what I mean? It's a step in a different direction.
Is it this circle thing with the avatars in it?
I think so. I'm not sure. What I saw in there looked like a Windows UI, actually. It's very colorful. It was very colorful.
Yeah, that's what it looks like here.
Yeah, it was very colorful, different colors on the side. It wasn't as plain Jane. The pins wasn't there. They had an image of Forza Horizon 3 on the right-hand side which looked like regular Forza Horizon 3. It didn't look like it was any different, considering it was on Scorpio, or supposed to be on Scorpio. Who knows? We'll see, man. It's E3 is not that far away. We're coming up on a month, or we already passed a month by 2 days. So, we're right around the corner. I'm excited for it. I can't wait to get out there and get an opportunity to check out what they have to show up close and report back on it. And I will definitely try to periscope that as well to show our community what that console looks like. But like I said, man, I don't think it can be any that much different, or it may really change your perception of things just a bit and how people view the console. You look at the Pro is exactly what the PS4 is. And if you're really going for this mid-gen upgrade idea, I think it truly needs to be the same as the Xbox. Maybe a few bells and whistles that the Xbox can't do just because you have more memory going towards the OS. But for the most part, I would hope that it's pretty much or close to the same UI. Plus, you don't want to have people operating different systems. It confuses people too. That's another thing you don't want. So hopefully it's exactly what we're playing right now, what we're using right now.
By the way,
how many gigs of RAM do they dedicate to? That they only use 3 gigs of RAM dedicated to UI on the current Xbox One, correct?
Yeah, I think they have 8 3s to, I think it's actually 2.5 now, and 5.5 to games. I believe it's 5.5 to games, 2.5 to the UI. It used to be 3, but on the latest OS, they cut the memory down. So it's like 2.5 to what's the name. On the Scorpio is 8 to games and 4 to the UI.
Right.
The OS. Yeah.
So I guess that there would be some changes.
There'll definitely be changes. I mean, it also allows them to play all the Xbox One games that's backwards compatible.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Plus the 360 games that's backwards compatible. You still have the hypervisor, the 3 layers. You still have to compensate for Kinect for people who have Kinect. As well as whatever you're doing UI-wise, Cortana and all this other stuff that they have. But they were smart to go for the extra 3 gigs of RAM or 2.5 gigs of RAM for games. So that'll be a big factor for Xbox, which would be nice. So we'll see what happens. All right. So listen, Ubisoft has been on fire. I remember a few months back, me, B, and our old castmate Mike Unified, we got a chance to talk about Ubisoft a long time ago, and we ripped them a new one. We talked about how Assassin's Creed Unity was just trash. We talked about Nintendo seal of approval. We spoke about how Ubisoft has just fallen off. And last year, myself, B, and Anchorman went to Ubisoft's E3 and literally fell asleep on the presentation and walked out when they presented Star Trek. We literally was like, who paid these people? Like, who paid them to be
who
there?
Paid LeVar Burton to be there. Against his will. He's been reading too many rainbows lately.
Like, they started out so good. Like, the conference started so good with Fractured Butthole. And then they showed the VR Eagle game, and then it just was boring. Wildlands looked disappointing, even though it turned out to be a success. It didn't look as good as it did when we first saw it. We could actually see the downgrade. We saw the downgrade. It was completely disappointing, and we just walked out midway through the presentation and just left. It was just like, oh, this is terrible. But they seem to have completely change the mindset of what's happening. The top sellers for March, I believe, for April, was For Honored and Wildlands, which was huge titles for them. They both were critically successful and financially successful, so that's great for Ubisoft. And now we're hearing big rumors about Microsoft having a marketing deal with Ubisoft. Now, a lot of us believe that it could be a new Splinter Cell, but we also believe it could be a new Assassin's Creed. Now, Anchorman has been having conversations with some people And he has some news. So we're going to sit up there and we're going to talk about what's going on with Ubisoft and let Anchorman go ahead and take it away. So what's the word, Anchor?
All right. So basically what I've been hearing, there's a lot of different stuff going on with Ubisoft. Now everyone's talking about there's the marketing deal. And there will be definitely a marketing deal with Xbox that doesn't require a lot of work to figure out. Now, in terms of what I've been hearing is that supposedly it might not be Assassin's Creed, like everyone's expecting, or might not just be Assassin's Creed. Now, the issue with that, namely, is that Sony has a ton of marketing deals coming out there, and as a publisher, marketing deals, you want some sort of diversity in who you're going with. You don't want every game just with Sony or every game just with Xbox. You want a little bit of diversity here and there. And right now, Ubisoft's kind of sitting out there with not much else coming out. They've also been kind of doing this kind of half and half thing with Microsoft and Sony when it comes to this kind of stuff. Now, the other thing, though, is that there will be an unannounced game supposedly coming out, for what I'm hearing. Now, I think that's kind of a given, but supposedly this unannounced game will have some sort of tie with Microsoft in there. This may be the Splinter Cell thing, or it might be something completely new. Not entirely sure.
Now,
we do know that Ubisoft has 3 unannounced AAA games that are supposed to come out before March of 2018. So,
yeah, one of them.
That's what it could be, but yeah. I'm excited either way.
If I had to guess, if I were just guessing, now new IPs are hard to guess really because we just don't know. But it's with this one though, if we're being conservative guesses, probably Far Cry 5. Because it is following with their cycle about 2-year dev times. And the last one came out last year, back in February, early February. So Far Cry 5 is definite possibility. I know actually I made a joke calling it Far Cry Frontier and doing like a Frontier Western kind of vibe, which is kind of weird because we're hearing that it might be a Western.
Right, I heard that too.
But now, and so the other one is like Assassin's Creed, probably because they haven't officially announced it yet. The other one, everyone's kind of pointing at Splinter Cell as a likely thing. That's namely backed up by what Larry Herb or Major Nelson was hype, kind of out of nowhere talking about this banner they had up at the Xbox headquarters for Splinter Cell and like the original Xbox multiplayer stint. And it was just kind of like, that's interesting timing, and we haven't heard from Splinter Cell in a good long while. And they do have a very long history of working with Xbox in particular. So that is definitely a possibility. Now, in terms of a new IP, we don't really know. But from what I'm hearing, this may have some sort of relationship with Xbox.
That would be a big title if it was. I don't think it would be exclusive. Maybe it could be timed. Maybe it can be... I don't know, but I tell you what, after seeing some big titles coming out from Sony that are third party with Nier, and obviously Persona, and the regular stuff like Yakuza, it would be nice to see Ubisoft make an exclusive title for Microsoft. Matter of fact, I don't think Ubisoft's ever made an exclusive title for anybody. Have they?
They tried with Nintendo, and then they were going to make Rayman for Nintendo.
Yeah, Zombie U.
And then they made Zombie it on multiple consoles, and they made Zombie U on the Wii U, and then they made that on multiple consoles. So they've tried, but has been unsuccessful. I mean, I wouldn't mind if they tried again, and just try a different partnership, at least with Microsoft. I would be, if it's a new IP, I'm good with that. I would hate to see them try to do like a Assassin's Creed or a Splinter Cell game as an exclusive,
right?
Just because, that type of stuff kind of hurts the overall brand of those games. But if it's a new IP, I'm good with that.
Yeah, I agree. If it's a new IP, I can agree with that. A game like Splinter Cell has been multi-plat, should stay multi-plat. I think that if they got the marketing deal on Splinter Cell, it would make sense because Splinter Cell is synonymous with Xbox. Assassin's Creed is kind of gone back and forth between PlayStation and Xbox. I'm just excited that Assassin's Creed is now taking place in Egypt. I just don't like I don't like the title. Supposedly it went from Empires to Origins. Me and Anchor we didn't get into it, but we spoke about it a bit, and I expressed my displeasure because I'm like, you already have like freaking 6 Assassin's Creed titles. Why would you do a prequel now? You're naming it Origins? So you're going way back to the origins of the Assassin's Creed? Like, that's just insane to me. So I would really hope that it's not that, because I really want it to be Assassin's Creed Sands of Time. That's what I want. You know what I'm saying? I need some Prince of Persia in my life, and Assassin's Creed is the closest thing I'm ever going to get to a new Prince of Persia. So if it's in Egypt, that would be awesome, especially if you have to deal with.
You know, since they took the time off, that they would also try to like separate it a little bit from like the original games. So you would think that they would, you know, make it this big production and name it something other than Origins. Right. That makes it almost tied to the other games.
Now, I kind of like the fact of doing a prequel. They've done it before. Like the Kenway line's done that a lot. They go back and forth in time, and I'm generally fine with that. Because here's the big issue. The Assassin's Creed franchise suffers from, ever since Assassin's Creed 3, they've really had no plot, and they're just kind of biding their time. And everybody knew it. It was like the main plot line was boring as hell. Like it was funny because everybody hated Desmond until I didn't. Yeah, everybody hated Desmond until Assassin's Creed 3 because Connor was kind of boring. And it was finally an opportunity, and it was just it was so funny watching that the changes. As soon as Desmond's gone, we stopped playing as him. There really was no plot after that in terms of the larger overarching universe, which they hinted at all the time. And it really kind of sucked. It was just, they really need some overarching plot now to drive everything. They've been relying on these really dumb little bits and pieces. Like, honestly, it's been pretty bad.
I don't know, man. I just feel like a prequel now just kills the momentum. If you're going on and on and on about trying to find whatever it is that you can, like, because initially the Ezio story was special because it really gave you the sense of the end of the world, and that you had to find and stop this Armageddon from happening. But as you continued on, it lost its sense of way. Now you're talking about it being a ride and people, you know, going through their ancestry to play as the assassins, and it's an underlining tone behind it. I don't know, man. Just not really feeling the direction it was going. But I'm just excited because I like mythological things. I love Egyptian mythology, especially when it comes to the gods and Ra and Horus and Set and things like that. That's one of the reasons why I love Conan, because Conan also deals with those gods. Even though he's a barbarian, he deals with Set, and who's mainly his main villain in the Conan universe. Same thing with Greek mythology and Roman mythology. I love all of those mythologies. So being set in Egypt really excites me, but I just don't like the fact that they're making it an Origins tale. I may still pick it up. I've skipped the last 2 Assassin's Creed, both Unity and Syndicate.
Oh,
yeah,
Syndicate,
the last one I played was Black Fat.
Syndicate was really good. The problem was just everybody had a bad taste in their mouth from Unity. Well, Unity wasn't really that bad, but it wasn't really a good Assassin's Creed game either.
Right.
You couldn't even play it. It was that bad.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. The eyeballs in the mouth with no face, bro, that was pretty bad.
I know. They were pretty bad.
Bro, that was pretty bad, bro. Unity was pretty bad. I remember playing that game as a beta tester, and it was pretty bad. The controls were pretty bad too. I didn't like the controls on it. But I think Ubisoft does Assassin's Creed. They do Far Cry 5. I do think they do Far Cry 5. And I would hope it's a new Splinter. They do a new Splinter Cell and a new IP. I think that's what they do.
Yeah.
And those would be the big titles. And that actually is a pretty nice lineup when you think about it. That's actually a really, really genuinely, really good lineup. They'll probably show more of South Park as well to go along with it. As long as they don't have Star Trek virtual reality again, And that Eagle game and whatever else they was putting up, I'm pretty good with Ubisoft lineup because Ubisoft actually has been done pretty well. They had that little RPG, that turn-based RPG that I really liked with the nursery rhymes. I really enjoyed that game. You had Wildlands was a success. Syndicate was pretty good. For Honor's pretty good. They've been on a roll, man. They're really stepping their game up and really dialing it in and looking like they're producing some really good content.
Yeah, and they're one of the few major publishers that continue to bring us new IP. So you got to applaud them for that. Absolutely.
So before we end the show and maybe take a few questions, TheVerge.com, as you guys know, big media websites, came out and said that no one is interested in PS4 Pro and Xbox Scorpio. That the fans do not want to purchase these new mid-generation consoles. For all the hype and all the hoopla, fans are sticking with their original consoles.
Now, before we start about that, though, I saw that poll. 24% of those people say mobile is their primary platform. So, what you think about that?
Oh, come on, bro. Who are they talking to?
And they said 9% of people don't even know what an Xbox or a PlayStation is.
All right. Verge is just out here in Alaska. Verge is out here in third world countries, talking to like African and Aboriginal Australian people with no TV. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like they're talking to huts that's still stuck in 18th century. Like, come on, bro. Let's be realistic here. They're not really asking these big gaming markets these questions. You know what I'm saying? There's just way too much information out there. Now, of course, don't get me wrong. I said this before that the hardcore dictate a lot. I think a lot of people don't give the hardcore enough credit. They really buck the trend of popularity when it comes to gaming. If the hardcore is buying everything up and you're a casual and your friend has it, you eventually buy the game too to play with them, or you see what everyone's buying and you buy it eventually. So I think for Xbox fans, I think more Xbox fans will buy Scorpio than at least the hardcore than the PlayStation guys. And the reason why I say that is just because, and it may sound kind of foul, but it's just because Xbox guys are just tired of playing second fiddle to PlayStation. They're tired of the resolution issue. They're tired of, the frames per second issue. They're tired of hearing Digital Foundry be, in their opinions, biased or giving too nitpicky towards a PlayStation. And with Scorpio on the horizon, it now will be the dominant console, and it gives not only the games for Xbox an advantage, it also makes the platform have the bullet points that the fan base wants to shut the opposing competition up. And that's just the true reality of it. And I also think fans just want great looking games in 4K. So I truly think that a lot of the fan base will jump over to Scorpio. I for sure am. I have 2 Xboxes sitting and waiting to be traded in, the Slim and the original. And I'll just have my PS4 Pro and my Xbox Scorpio. And I think a lot of fans plan to do that as well. Now, whether the casuals do it after the initial hardcore do it, I don't know. That's the question. Do the casuals go out and buy this console if it's $500? If it's $399, you're in the business. I give you that. And I'll be playing Alien Isolation, pissed as hell that I took this bait. I meant this bet, because that's what it was, bait. But
you'll be playing in 4K.
True, but I'll be playing it in 4K. Absolutely. So we'll see what happens with that. But what do you guys think about this? Like, do you think the Xbox fans truly are going to gravitate towards Scorpio and pick it up, or do they just stick with their Xbox Ones and Slims?
I think personally, like it's going to happen though. I mean, price normally dictates most of the stuff. And if it is $499, no casual person is even going to dare attempt to think of buying an Xbox. Like that ain't happening. If it's $399, you might sway a couple more people, but you got to keep in mind the Xbox One S is going to be $200. Like, that's price dictates a lot to casuals, and if you can get a good cheap deal, that's console sold. Like it doesn't matter how good the other one is.
Right. And I said that. So I'm like, if you do that, then the 500 gig is 200, the 1 terabyte is 250, and the 2 terabyte is 300, and your Scorpio is 4. And that's your pricing. That's your pricing for your consoles. And I think eventually you just phase out the OG Xbox and the Slim becomes the new one. You just put Slims out going forward. I think that makes much more sense in that regard. But if if the console comes in at $499, which I think it may be, then Phil Spencer sticks to his guns, and he was being honest that it's not for everyone. It's truly for the hardcore and the people who truly want it. And Anchorman won't be playing Fallout for the next year, and he miss out on the next Bethesda release for an entire month, and that sounds about right to me. So we'll see what happens coming at E3 in a month. So I'm definitely excited about that. Yeah, man. So listen, go ahead, B.
Now, for me, first, man, shout to my boy Tom Warren at The Verge, man. I love Tom Warren. Read all his articles, watch all his videos. So shout out to Tom Warren. But in regards to like people adopting the Scorpio, I think you're both right. I think what you'll see initially is you'll see more hardcore Xbox fans run out and pick it up than you did like the hardcore PlayStation fans pick up the Pro. But I also agree that, price kind of dictates everything. When there'll be a slew of games, they'll have the Game Pass ready. And if you can, save $400 and buy buy a console for $200 and pick up a couple more games for that extra $200 and get the Game Pass for $10, you'll probably go that route rather than spend another $400, or just don't buy, spend the $400 and then put that $400 towards games. So it just depends on the consumer, and it depends on what games are available, and if that becomes that big of a deal to them, to have games running 4K. I think it also dictate on, if people are ready to make that jump to 4K, if they're money on the TV, or if they're prepared for that. So, but I think it'll be exciting either way, and I think you'll definitely have more people jump on it initially, and we'll just have to see what the casuals do. I think probably by next E3, you'll kind of see which way the casuals are going to go, if it makes a big deal to them or not.
Right. Well, that's it for the show tonight, man. I really appreciate we have 43 people watching. Please give us a thumbs up, share with your friends and your buddies. Go ahead, spread the word about this great channel that we have built up for gamers, Xbox fans, PlayStation fans, geeks, and freaks, and of course, people out there who just want to find a place that they can hear about gaming without the nonsense. Definitely step on over to the Tick Network. Again, on Mondays you'll have Multiverse podcasts where you'll get a chance to hear about multiplats and movies and comics and television shows and just awesomeness. Hey, you guys got a guest coming on, don't you?
Oh, we do. One second, grabbing something real quick. Go in here. Actually, a Multiverse. This Monday, we will be having Stevie Richards, the pro wrestler from the WWE from the 90s Attitude Era, live on Multiverse.
It's pretty dope, man.
54, be there.
Congratulations on that pickup. This is what we do at Tick, man. We be killing the game, bro. Like, it's no disrespect to other people. Like, seriously, though. Like, come on, man. We really do go all out for our base. Like, we really try to be different and unique for the people out there who listen to us and support us, man. We really try to go above and beyond, and I'm just very proud of this team. On Tuesdays, we have Trophy Life, which kind of alternates for all the PlayStation fans out there, led by Nicodemus and his team with Chris and Kev. Make sure you guys check out Trophy Life for the latest from PlayStation, and basically the premier PlayStation podcast for Tick Network. On Wednesdays, you can always catch Double XP podcast. Now, listen, I love this podcast, man. I tune into this thing. It's just freaking pure comedy. You have Fame Entertainment, Nicodemus, Crunk Girl, and Mamacita. Great cast. These guys crack jokes every night, it's pure comedy, a little bit raunchy. It's for our mature adult gamers out there who are more into the adult side of things, and it's a debate show, Xbox versus PlayStation, but we keep it classy. Actually, we don't keep it classy, but we don't keep it fanboyish and console warish. Of course, Tick Podcast, the premier podcast for Xbox on Thursday nights with your team of myself, B Money, and Anchorman. So listen, we greatly appreciate all of the support as always. And hopefully we can continue to deliver great content for you guys at a great place. So I'm going to go ahead and end the show for the MP3 crowd. We'll take a few questions because it is late on the East Coast. It's almost 1 a.m. And I know on the West Coast it's popping right about now, in the Midwest and Central. But we'll take a few questions before we head out here because we have such a great fan base in here watching us right now. 41 people watching. Make sure you give us a thumbs up and support. I'm your host, KLRSKLL, the last son of Planet Xbox with B Money 101 and Anchorman V, and we are off this planet. Peace. All right, team. Listen,
congrats to Kid Smooth on getting the platinum. Uncharted crushing.
Okay, yo, Kid Smooth is a gamer, man. I don't know why people be hating on Kid. Kid puts in work, bro. Kid puts in work. I give Kid gets it in. I give him that. Absolutely. Let's see. All right. First question, the A-bomb. I have a question for the end of the show. Phil said he wanted out of big third-party deals to invest in new IP. Do you think we will see much this year? And will they be more indie style or AAA style? Well, I would hope that he did sign at least some AAAs. I don't think we'll get any new AAAs this year. I think the lineup is pretty much set, unless
I think we get one.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Unless they push Sea of Thieves, I think then we may get one, or they may keep Sea of Thieves and we may get one major new AAA title. But I don't think it's going to be anything big. I think their holiday is set. Everything we see at E3 that's new will be either spring or holiday 2018.
Yep,
and
it will be the next year.
It'll be the next year. And if they say it's holiday 2018, that game is ready because they're not going to present anything that's not ready. I think that's something that they learned from Scalebound, something that they learned from Fable. So if we see anything at E3, it's going to be ready. And we'll be getting the game in 2018, or spring of 2018. But we may get one major title to go with Crackdown, Sea of Thieves, State of Decay, and Forza 7.
They better have some games in the spring. We're gonna have some.
They definitely need games in the spring. They definitely need games in the spring.
Columns.
It's about time they did that. They definitely need games in the spring. This end of the year crap, I don't care what Microsoft's talking about. I'm actually get annoyed sometimes when I talk to some of the team, and they're like, "Yeah, the holidays are great. Holidays." I'm like, "Bro, y'all getting smashed by Call of Duty and Battlefield on like a regular basis at this point. Like, if you're not learning your lessons, like, come on." Guys got to start releasing games in early January, February, March, and the summer. People need to release games in the summer. I know people feel like nobody's home. Gamers will buy games. It doesn't matter when you drop them. If they're hot, they'll pick them up. And that's the reality of it. Stay away from the holidays unless you got a major title that can truly compete with those big multiplats, because the big multiplats are going to sell regardless. And it could be a choice between your game and that big multiplat. And 9 times out of 10, people will probably choose the big multiplat because that's what multiplats do. They sell. Most people's favorite games are multiplats. And that's the honest truth. Let's see here. Gene Mark Lewis says Spider-Man and God of War, both single-player games. The majority of Xbox players don't care about single-player games, buddy. Well, I think that's a load of BS. I think you look at a lot of the games that's released from 360 era onto the Xbox One era, people still play single-player games in abundance. Mass Effect, Assassin's Creed, I can't think off the top of my head right now, but there's a ton of single player games that come out all the time. Just they're multi-plats most of the time, and Xbox gamers buy them. They just have to be really well done. I think Microsoft has been hit or miss with some of their exclusives, like Quantum Break and Recore, but those games have potential and could be worked on and could be fixed. I think that's why they're trying to fix Recore. What are your guys' thoughts on this?
I think people still buy single player games. Look at Fallout. Look at Tomb Raider.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Elder Scrolls.
Skyrim.
You know? Yeah, absolutely.
People still buy single player games.
I'm going to take a different stance on it. I believe Xbox gamers have a higher standard when it comes to single player games.
Oh, Jesus.
We only played the single player games of the utmost quality, as opposed to other systems that play just any drivel that happens to show up.
You better hope none of Trophy Life fans is listening to this show. We about to have a plethora of PlayStation guys going ham on you about all the games that just released on that console. Funny stuff. No, but Xbox fans play single player games. But I agree, like Anchor said, it's just really about the quality of the title. Ori the Blind Forest sold millions, and that's a single player platformer. You know, it's a very successful game. I just think people need things on the platform that is really good. And those games didn't review well, or they were broken. Recore came out the gate a bit broken, and loading times were really slow. I wouldn't say broken. I would say glitchy, and the loading times were very slow. And, Quantum Break didn't live up to the hype, at least to some fans. I thought Quantum Break was an amazing game. It looked great graphically, but it's just something that needs to be worked on to improve. And I think if people can improve upon it, if the studios can improve upon it, I don't know if we'll ever get another Quantum Break or we'll ever get a Recore 2. Microsoft does own the IP, but you'd have to give those games to new studios. I'm not sure if those games will be around long term, but they do have the potential to be successes. Put it like that.
Mm-hmm. And Phil did come out and say that their new big franchises will be rolled out at this year's E3, and I would assume that at least one of them could be single player focused. So we'll see.
Right. Let's see here. The A-Bomb asks, do you think the new Tomb Raider game will be a timed exclusive again?
Nope.
Even if Microsoft does most of the financing?
Nope.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Now, you saw how quick Square backed out of that when it was exclusive. They were like, no, it's not. I mean, it's coming. They backed down real quick. I think they learned their lesson on that one.
Yep. I think that's why you won't see any other major publisher take a franchise like that has historically been a multi-plat and try to make it time exclusive for either platform, whether it be Nintendo, Microsoft, or PlayStation. I think you can only do that with the new IP.
Right. I agree. Analog Circle Podcast asks, will you guys be doing a React podcast for Microsoft after their E3 show on that Sunday? Sunday night, yes, we'll be doing a podcast for both E3, for Microsoft and both Bethesda, because those shows and events will be back to back. We'll try to do it like we did last year, to be kind of late, but God willing, we'll try to get in after the Bethesda party, which will probably run a little late, and do a show around 11. But it won't be this team, unfortunately, because B has a new child and Anchorman is trying to stack his paper. These guys have given up their seats this year and have a lot of new team to go. So it'll be myself, Nicodemus, and two of our writers from TICGN. And hopefully we have a great show. I think it'll be pretty good. Me and Nick, and then we got some new guys. So guys should be excited to meet some of the team from the website. And also, if you've been trying to go to the website, please excuse the mess. It's down right now. We're working on it. We've had some issues, but it should be up sometime this week.
There will be a show regardless on Sunday.
Yeah, there'll be a show. There definitely will be a show. Drunken Master D says, we need new IPs on Xbox, period, point blank. The same old Halo, Forza, and Gears aren't doing anymore. I don't know, man. I know there's been a lot of Halos. You've had one Gears, well, two Gears if you include Ultimate. the remastered and whatever else they handed out. But they've done pretty good with IPs, man. I think people just disregard the IPs because I don't want to say they're forgettable, but they just haven't been Halo level. They haven't been Gears level. Sunset Overdrive, Rise, Son of Rome. You think of Max Cursed Brotherhood, Killer Instinct really isn't new, but a great reboot and a very successful fighter franchise, man. One of the highest rated, if not the highest rated fighter this generation, probably next to Mortal Kombat, as well as Ori and the Blind Forest, which is a great brand new IP. I think a lot of people gloss over. Quantum Break, Recore, they've had a ton of IP. It's just, like I said, I just don't think they were as memorable as a Horizon Zero Dawn. No disrespect to the Xbox games. And honestly, I think Horizon Zero Dawn is a little bit overrated playing it, but it's a really good game. It's a very gorgeous game, and it's a lot to do, and it's different because you're dealing with robot mechs, and that's really awesome. It really appeals, and I understand the appeal to it, and it's something that Xbox doesn't have, which is why I thought Scalebound was so important, because it was something that Xbox didn't have and was really important for the diversity of the console. And it's unfortunate that they lost that game, but hopefully at E3 we'll see something that is going to replace that franchise, and it's something that can get fans hyped up and excited for either this holiday or next year. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think they've had some good IPs. I wouldn't say really good. I think the one standout is Ori, because it was rated so high. Great platformer. But platformers aren't for everybody. But when you look at the rest of the catalog, Sunset Overdrive was a pretty good game. Rise was a great launch game. You know what I mean? Especially when you compare it to the competition. You know what I mean? Quantum Break, I never was really high on it, but like playing it out, it's a solid game. Recore definitely needed some fixes out the gate. But they've all just been good games. And I think what a lot of the Microsoft guys are looking for is that next big game. You know what I mean? That next big character to kind of hang our hats on and say, you know what I mean, this is one that's gonna, lead the charge with Marcus Phoenix and Master Chief. So we're still waiting on that. Hopefully this year's E3, brings us something like that. Because we just haven't had that yet.
Yeah, I 100% agree. They've had Halo for the first Xbox, Gears for 360, and they need their next big franchise for the Xbox One. Hopefully they can deliver that with Scorpio, as probably not the new lead platform, but as a new platform to show off games. So we'll see what happens with that. I'm going to answer a few more questions, and then we're going to go ahead and end the show. I want to thank everybody for their support and all their questions and hanging out with us tonight. Let's see here.
Yeah, I got to split, guys. I'll talk to you guys later. Thanks
all right,
Anchor.
All right, Anchor.
All right, thanks. Question: what do you think about an Advent Rising remake? I've been clamoring for an Advent Rising remake for a very long time. I think it would make a great sci-fi adventure game, but it truly needs to be a reboot, rewritten, and completely redone. Not a remaster, but a complete reboot of that game. The question is, I don't know if Microsoft owns that franchise. I don't think they do. So it would be something they would have to collab with somebody with the original studio to try to bring that game back. But that was a big title back in the day that wasn't successful because it was very buggy. It was a very buggy game. And the controls, a lot of people didn't like the way you fought in the game as well. B, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be something that they could bring back. But like you said, I think it has to be a remake, updated for today's gaming market. It may see some success, but I don't know if it would be worth the investment. I guess you would kind of have to gauge, see if games are still interested in something like that. Right.
Gaming Addict, shout out to AJ. Gaming Addict asks, is there any games that could take the light off of Scorpio at E3? I don't know if he means for Xbox or the competition. I know if Microsoft pops up with Knights of the Old Republic remaster as an exclusive, that's it. That's it. Absolutely. I think if they pop up with Knights of the Old Republic exclusively, like a new Knights of the Old Republic, oh my God, forget it. or even a new exclusive Star Wars game. I think people just want Knights of the Old Republic back. I know I do. Maybe I'm just exaggerating how many people really want Knights of the Old Republic because I want it so bad. Probably like me.
I mean,
and one
it'd be a
other
perfect
guy.
time to bring it back, though, man. You know, Star Wars is hitting its stride again. You know what I mean? Everybody's super excited about it. This would be the perfect time to bring it back.
Yeah, I don't know if I think I don't know if anything from PlayStation side will take the light off Scorpio. I mean, they're going to have games regardless, but it's games we know that's coming. I'm sure they'll show some new stuff. But it's really just a big sequel event for them. You know, God of War. I'm pretty sure we'll see Last of Us 2. We'll see. There's another game I was thinking about that they're going to show part 2 of as well. Another game I can't think off the top of my head. But you know that as well as Spider-Man, Gran Turismo 6. Like there's a lot of sequels popping up at Sony's event. And as excited as the PlayStation crowd is for that, you know, I don't want to be a hypocrite, but it's just weird because a lot of people aren't excited with the Xbox side of their games, and their games are a lot of sequels too. So I don't understand why those games get down, but those other games get praised, which is just weird to me. What was you gonna say, B?
I was gonna say I think the only team that could kind of overshadow the Scorpio announcement would be Nintendo. If they came and announced a new Pokemon game, or you know, bring back some of the beloved franchises that they kind of have in their stable, I think that would at least take a lot of the media coverage. You know what I mean? You'll see a lot of media, you know, talking about Nintendo and things like that. I don't know if it would, you know, completely steal a show for Scorpio, but that would definitely garner a lot of attention.
Would definitely have impact without question. Nintendo is the only company I think that could really make a major impact game wise, which is weird to me because it's like they have the same franchises every year and yet we clamor for them like like I'm just dead serious. Like I literally seen them talking about a new Metroid and people going crazy over Metroid like we never played Metroid before.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? It's like the 25th Metroid. It's like the 67th Mario, but you know, they're just looked at differently. We just have to accept that. You know, they're not Sony, they're not Xbox. They're looked at differently. People just look at them differently. So it is what it is. Let's see. The A-Bomb asks, doesn't Sea of Thieves just scream something that will be huge on Twitch, Beam, YouTube, like Grand Theft Auto 5 Multi? Looks like so much fun. I don't know, bro. I'm still skeptical about the game. I get Xbox fans that get at me all the time, like, don't bash the game. Just wait for the game to be shown. I'm still waiting for the game to be shown. Like, even in the beta, they're not really showing much. I mean, you can't talk about it. I haven't played it yet, so I can say whatever the hell I want. But just based on what I've been hearing and based on what I've seen and what I played at E3, the combat is fun. The ship combat is fun. The camaraderie and working together with friends is going to be amazingly fun. But just overall, it's not enough depth right now. At E3, they can come out and we can see customized ships and cannons and colors and different gangs, pirate crews and things like that. That's really representative of like an actual crew, you know, with large ships and people teamed up like an armada. Like if you can have alliances and you can have an armada with 2 other pirate crews, oh my God, it would be amazing. But I don't know that. We don't know anything about the game. But
I think that's probably maybe the biggest struggle for me for this game, and then just the other games, you know, for State of Decay and for Crackdown. It's like we know what Crackdown is, assumingly, but we haven't seen those games. And you know that Phil talked about, you know, telling the story at this year's E3. They really have to roll those games out and make people understand like what they are and what they're getting with those franchises. For Sea of Thieves, like, you know, when they announced it, like I wasn't really high on it, and I'm still not high on it because it's like, okay, yeah, I could play with, you know, a couple friends, we can roll around and collect this treasure, but what other depth is it to the game beyond that?
Right.
And that's kind of what they need to show off and make me understand and make me care about the game.
Right. Absolutely. I 100% agree. I just need to see more. They show up and they show all these impressive things with the game, and it looks like fun. Yes, absolutely. It can be a smash hit success on Beam and have all this interactivity with the fans. It does scream a game that you want to show off consistently, but it's the one game we've seen so much of, but know so little about. Like they literally
Yep.
have documentaries on this game, every week, and we still know nothing about the game. Whether it's a story, whether there's a campaign, whether it's like Destiny, whether it's not like that, like we don't know. So hopefully we see something soon, and we can all be excited about what Rare is working on, and hopefully Rare can get back to Rare form. I guess our last question would be from the Analog Circle podcast. I just jumped down a bit. Give me 1 second to get back to that question. He says, Analog Circle podcast says, I have to say that I really appreciate the interaction with your audience. Thank you, sir. We appreciate you stopping in. We really are humbled by the support that we have gotten over the last 3 years. Our growth from 300 subs to 6,000 subs. We don't draw attention to ourselves. We don't do the drama or the beef or the calling of names. So the 6,000 subs really mean there are people out there that just really want genuine good content or really good debates, and really just all about gaming, whether it's Xbox or PlayStation or whatever. So we're very proud of that and proud of the fans that support us. So absolutely, anytime I can give time to the fans for supporting me, who I'm just a gamer like you guys, absolutely, I will give time to answer any questions people who value our opinions. Absolutely, I will give that time. So thank you, and thank all of you guys for stopping in. Let me see. Before we finish up, Mech Assault, Crimson Skies, Brute Force from LM Beck. Yeah, I agree with Mech Assault. Crimson Skies, absolutely. Brute Force, I'm a pass, bro. I can't play it, man. I hate that game, bro. I hate that game, bro. Okay, so Victor Alistine asks, there was 2 canceled games called Duality and Strident that looked like they would have been amazing if they live. Do you know of them? I do not. What about you, B?
No, I've never heard of them, but I'm gonna
look those up. I will look those up, Victor. We appreciate the shout out, and we'll try to talk about those on next week's episode. AJ Gaming Addict asks, when is Cal playing the Alien game? This is what I get, B. This is a trend that Anchorman has started. I got people harassing me on my Twitter account. Shout out if you want to follow me on Twitter. My Twitter is @LynRulesDuhWorld, and that's duh with a D and an A, not THE, on Twitter, or follow me at @tick_podcast on Twitter. I constantly get berated with buy Alien Isolation because the Xbox fans need this console to be $399. They really need this console to be $399. I still think it's $499. Console just has way too much stuff in it for it to be a $399 console. But if it is, then Microsoft took a hit, I think, and it's well worth the hit, because I think a lot of people will gobble up the most powerful console on the market for $399. You cannot beat that price. Literally, if I probably traded in my Slim and an Xbox, I'd probably get that console for like $100 or $150, which would be excellent for me.
Man, I know everybody wants it to be $399. I'm thinking that it'd be closer to $499. I think that it's closer to $499 just because, like, Microsoft, since Nadella has taken over as the CEO, like, Microsoft isn't scared to like price their stuff high and be okay with it. You know what I mean? Like, it's a premium device. $499 is a good price point. You know what I mean? Like, if you look at everything that they do with it, they customize, you know what I mean, everything. The CPU and GPU are together, you know what I mean? So they did a lot of customization on this console. And I would hate for him to, take all this loss out the gate. Like, just looking at it from a fan's perspective. As a consumer, I would definitely want it to be cheaper, but
Right.
you know what I mean?
Right.
$4.99 I'm good with.
Yeah, $4.99 I'm good with too. I just see them dropping this console at $4.99. I know fans wanted to be $3.99, but like you said, B, you look at what they've done with their laptops. You look at that the Elite controller. You look at what they're doing with the Surface. Microsoft is not afraid to price themselves on a level that screams premium.
Right.
And they've been shouting premium with this console for the longest time. And $399 doesn't scream premium. $399 screams a basic console at this point in the generation. So $499, yes, it prices them out of the range of everyone picking it up. But Phil Spencer already came out and said the console's not for everybody. I think people tend to forget that. They don't care if Scorpio sells or not. They only look at it as another Xbox. They will only count it as another Xbox. And it will count the same way when people buy the Slims or the OGs. It will all be Xbox. It won't be a separate category for Xbox One, at least when they announce a sale or when they announce how many consoles have been sold. If the console is successful at $499, they will shout it from the rooftops. I'm sure they will. But at the same time, there's a very strong possibility that the console is $499. And it's $499 because they made all the customizations. Had they used new hardware, it would have been way more expensive than that. I think people tend to forget that. They made all the customizations. They kept the same CPU. They upgraded the GPU, but you're still forgetting the 4K 60 Blu-ray DVR that's built in there. You still have the 4K Blu-ray player. You still have the cooling system. There's pieces. You have the HDMI V-Sync, the 2.1. There's upgrades in the console for stuff that's not even out yet on HD TVs or 4K televisions. Like, the console has parts that may not be new to PC, but for a console, it's new. And that cost. So I still think the console may be $499. That's just my opinion. I would like it to be $399 as a consumer, but as a podcaster and as a media outlet, and just based on conversations I've had with Microsoft, we've all had with Microsoft, interviews we've done, I just see it at $499. But anyway, listen, man, I want to thank everybody for the support. I got one more question from File, and we'll go ahead and end it because I missed him earlier. File Dalvikin asked me about KI. He says, question, do you think question, do you want them to make a new Killer Instinct with Unreal or just a new season? I'll be honest with you, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And KI has some of the best net code on any fighting game. And if it's not broke, don't fix it. Everything doesn't have to be Unreal. I think sometimes people want everything to go Unreal because Unreal makes everything look amazing. But I think the team over at Iron Galaxy has done a tremendous job. They've really taken over from what Double Helix has presented, and they've done a great job. They have a fighting game pedigree, and I like what they've done. And what I would like for them to do is make the textures more realistic. Hopefully we get 4K textures, and hopefully the game is bumped up to 4K or at least 1080p. But we know it will be 60, which is great. And we know that the game should continue to be one of the best fighters of this generation. So hopefully,
I'm good with them just adding more seasons.
Right.
I would just like more characters per season. You know what I mean? Like, it's cool to have like the one character a month, or you know what I mean, the 6 characters in the season pass or whatever. But I think, they could definitely capitalize on it if maybe they did 2 seasons per year where they just continue to add more characters, continue to, you know what I mean, make it more, make people more aware of the game. And I think they'll continue to have success. I think it definitely has a huge audience, but I think they can make some more money off of it if they're not going to release like a Killer Instinct 2 per se. You know what I mean? So,
yeah, I agree. Just continue with what you've been doing. Your model works. People are buying it, and they've been very creative. So hopefully we see some more and new characters from the studio. It's their game now. It really truly is their game to build whatever they want, and hopefully we get that. So just keep it going, guys. The game it's been huge in the fighting community. So listen, man, that's it for our show, man. I think we gave you guys like a good hour and 40 something minutes, which is pretty unusual for us, but we had a good night and a lot to talk about. You guys can check out the MP3 in the backlog coming up sometime this weekend. I got a ton of stuff to post. The Adam is Green interview is out. If you guys want to list, not Adam is Green. I'm so sorry. The Adam Boys interview is out. If you want to go on there and check it out, you can hear how they came up with the idea of how to share play games, how to share games against Xbox, and how he got started at Sony. We get a chance to talk about Scorpio and PS4 Pro. We talk about fanboys. We talk about a ton of things, man. And Adam, you find out Adam's a really cool guy. Over 100,000 gamers score on Xbox. True gamer. Worked for Xbox for a very long. Well, not for Xbox, but worked on Xbox games for XBLA. A lot of games we played. You know, he worked on Blitz.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's crazy to me. I didn't even know that my damn self. He worked at Midway for some time, and he worked on NFL Blitz, which is pretty dope. Considering I used to kill that game in the arcade. Really awesome. But yeah, man, so that's it for the show. We'll be back next week, Thursday at 11 p.m. I love this slot. We get a great attention from a lot of people, as most people are asleep on the East Coast, and the West Coast is up looking for someone to listen to, and I'm glad we're at that show. And again, like I said, Mondays, Multiverse, Tuesdays, Trophy Life, Wednesdays, Double XP and Super Pod Shots, and Thursdays, the premiere podcast for Xbox Tech Podcast. I'm your host, KRY SKLL with B Money 101. We will see you guys next week. Thank you for support, and make sure you give us a thumbs up and share, and we're off this planet. You guys have a great night. Peace.